East Midlands has some of the most beautiful and historic places in the country, but we're not here for that. We're looking for the dirtiest, most disgusting and dangerous places in the region and give them a jolly good ranking off. This is the top 10 worst places in the East Midlands. Number 10, Boston, Massachusetts. Wait, sorry, that's an easy mistake to make. It is in fact Boston, Lincolnshire. This town gave its name to one of the most famous cities in the United States, and then it kind of faded into obscurity. These days, Boston comes in for quite a bit of stick. In recent years, it was the most Brexit town in the UK, the fattest town in the UK, and the most murderous town in the UK. So, as you can imagine, my expectations weren't high. But maybe, because of this, I was pleasantly surprised. The town centre was mostly run down, but with some nice areas. There were closed down shops, and due to a large Eastern European population, there are a lot of Euro convenience stores. All of this I was expecting to see, but there are also Italian and Mexican restaurants, Chinese takeaway obviously, and some traditional boozers. I wasn't really expecting the town to have any charm at all, but, well, have a look down this lane in the centre of town. This is the historic Emery Lane, and I'm going to recite you a post from Facebook from March 2024. Boston's Emery Lane. These days simply ain't the same, and the loss is more than the gain, even though a few shops from the past still remain. So I imagine in its heyday it was pretty nice, and well, it still isn't bad now. And neither is this. This is the marketplace that overlooks the Haven being the river running through Boston. The church on the right hand side is the St Botolph's Church, which is over 500 years old just about, and it's nicknamed the Boston Stump due to its non-pointed tower. The Britannia is closed down. I don't know whether that happened before or after Brexit. So Boston Old Town is generally pretty surprisingly nice. If this town didn't have such a terrible reputation and it wasn't so far out of the way, I reckon it'd be a fairly popular tourist attraction. As it was, I stood out as the only person with a camera taking pictures. Alright, so some places need liquor paint, but overall it's a nice part of town. So let's go and have a look what the rest of it is like. Well, if you're Eastern European, it's easy to get information on how to get universal credit, child benefit, that kind of thing. There's a Bulgarian food shop here, and someone's drawn a massive penis on the wall here. The squirrels are kind of friendly as well, until they find out you haven't got any food. This is the large and very verdant Central Park, which contains an aviary. We already talked about the large Eastern European population, but have you heard of Noblish before? Well, this is, I think it's a fusion between Norwegian and English. It's a highly rated Scandinavian cafe. Very much better than the Prezzo across the street. Well, in fairness, it's faring much better than most Boston businesses, it seems. Another Boston tourist attraction is the Maud Foster Mill, which was closed when I visited, and was getting a good old scrub from this chap with a head for heights. To be honest, there's lots of parts of town that could do with a bloody good scrub. So, what led almost 75% of Bostonian voters to vote Leave in the Brexit referendum? Well, going back to the early 2000s, Eastern Europeans started flocking to Lincolnshire to work in agriculture. Lincolnshire, if you don't know, is a sparsely populated area by English standards and produces a huge amount of fruit and veg, again by English standards. Therefore, the local companies prefer to hire folk from abroad who are reputedly more productive and willing to work for less money. Many of these folk settled in Boston, and it seems that integration has been a problem for many. Reportedly, some don't even speak any English whatsoever. This is a strange irony given that Boston is a town from which Puritans left in the 17th century to seek freedom in a new land. So the town centre is pretty average, interspersed with the odd historical building, closed down building, Euro mini mart and concrete monstrosity. I went to have a look in this shopping centre, which I couldn't actually tell from the outside was open. No surprise that there's hardly any shops open inside the centre, and hardly any people either. Another strange irony is coming up. So this fish and chip restaurant with old photos of Boston and how it used to be back in the day when it was all traditional is run by an Eastern European who was interviewed by GB News. I have tried to find this interview online to see what it's all about, but all I've found while searching GB News Boston is an interview with a man in January 2025 stating that immigration has worsened since Brexit was implemented. Anyway, the fish and chips were pretty decent, in case you were wondering. The Robin Hood pub has sadly closed down, and the inland port of Boston, once the second most important port in all of Britain after London, was pretty quiet. On the way out of town, I found there is some of the EU left in Boston, namely the EU International Corner Shop. Beyond that, on the outskirts of town, centuries-old churches and centuries-old graveyards, and further downriver, a memorial to the Pilgrim Fathers. I wonder how many Bostonians of Lincolnshire now wish they were Bostonians of Massachusetts. Number 9, Corby. Corby has had an eventful 100 years or so. In 1930, it was a small village of just 1,500 people, until iron and steel manufacturers built a site here in 1934, creating an influx of workers, mainly from Scotland, giving Corby the nickname of Little Scotland. By the time of World War II, the population had grown to 12,000. The steelworks came out of the war relatively unscathed due to the huge amounts of smoke being belched out of the steelworks to blanket them from German bombers. The images you're seeing here are of Corby's old town, by the way. Corby was then designated a new town in 1950, and even more folk made their way from north of the border. All was going well until 1975, when plans for the steelworks to close were initiated, and by 1979 11,000 people had lost their jobs, leading to an unemployment rate of over 30% in the town. Between 1984 and 1999, Corby Borough Council undertook the demolition of the former steelworks, and in the process leaked toxic waste into the air of the town, leading to birth defects in many of the children. The High Court found Corby Borough Council guilty of negligence, public nuisance and a breach of statutory duty. Corby Borough Council has since been disbanded in favour of Northamptonshire Council. Nowadays the town centre is, well, it's like most new towns, it's a bit on the crap side. Dull shopping precincts, not many people about, and derelict buildings. The same as new towns up and down the country. Somebody had set an alarm off here, it wasn't me. Promise you, officer, it was him, go get him. The Corby Cube, the most prominent building in the town, is the council offices. It was built by our friends Corby Borough Council, and once again it was wrapped up in a lot of controversy. Long story short, the Cube went way over budget and the quality of the building was much shoddier than expected. It's alleged that some brown envelopes may have been exchanged. Still, I thought it was a pretty cool building from the outside. It certainly looks a lot better than Newtown stuff. Here's a statue of a steelworker, and Corby still has its Scottish heritage, play in the local theatre based on Rangers and Celtic fans, and even the accent in Corby, and I heard it for myself, has a bit of a wee Scottish twang to it. You'll notice the cinema is called Savoy, same as the last town, Boston. I have to say, I was pretty much ambivalent to Corby. I didn't think it was particularly bad. I didn't think it was particularly good. It was distinctly average. It's in the middle of the country, it's far from the sea, it's far from any mountains or even any hills. It's far from anywhere really. It doesn't even have a river running through it. Corby, well, it's about as memorable and enjoyable as a microwave Scotch pie and a pint of tepid Tennent's. Number 8, well, you can see it right there, it's Cleethorpes. Cleethorpes is kind of like Grimsby by the sea. Grimsby did try to absorb Cleethorpes at one point, but Cleethorpes weren't having it. And I have to say, Cleethorpes is a bit nicer and Grimsby, well, it's a bit sadder. As you'd expect, I suppose, when comparing seaside town to port town. For some reason, nobody seems to be able to explain to me, Grimsby Town Football Club play their home games here in Cleethorpes. The Mighty Mariners, or Codheads as they're better known, play in League Two, the fourth tier of English football. According to many football fans, the Blundell Park Stadium ranks alongside the North Pole and Outer Siberia as the coldest place on Earth, with the wind whipping in from the North Sea. Speaking of which, we're heading there now, across the railway bridge to the seafront. Cleethorpes is a seaside resort that grew in the Victorian age when linked by railway to industrial towns in Yorkshire. The tide was way out when I visited, as was, unfortunately, most of the business on the North Promenade. This was a Friday afternoon, so you'd expect at least one chippy or ice cream stand to be open, but nope. Visitor numbers are down, and so this part of town has just been forgotten about, abandoned. Well, forgotten and abandoned that is, apart from by the boy racers who've just learnt how to ride a moped. Cleethorpes has direct trains coming in from Liverpool via Scunthorpe, Doncaster, Sheffield, Manchester and more, but Cleethorpes just seems out of vogue now. You step out of the station into a fantasy world. A fantasy world of stone bears eating ice creams by the looks of it. Maybe someone should fantasise about some ideas to get the customers back and cleaning up the wasteland and... ice cream. Sorry, I'm easily distracted when it comes to ice cream. So here in the centre, there's a lot more signs of life. You've got the pier, you've got the beach, you've got the tourist train chugging along the promenade slowly. Yeah, really bloody slowly. You've got an Asda carrier bag having a lie down in the sand. Cleethorpes Pier is a fraction of what it used to be, and it's been closed and reopened more times than my fridge the day after a heavy session. Papa's, the restaurant on the pier, claims to be the largest fish and chip restaurant in Britain. Cleethorpes has what they call a master plan to rejuvenate the town. This started in 2021. I do wonder if that included having the entire North Promenade closed down. Now, I didn't dislike Cleethorpes especially. Parts of it were getting lively on this sunny Friday afternoon, and there's a lake and a light railway. The beach is quite nice, but not really swimmable when the tide's out. Cleethorpes is famously a seaside resort, and a patriotic one at that. It may have even had an alien presence, as a UFO was spotted flying off the coast for an hour back in 1956. This UFO was even picked up on the local radar. I went to check out the town centre, and again it was alright. A few independent businesses and restaurants, not many signs of delinquency and bad behaviour, and the typical shops you'd expect in a town of 30,000. Cleethorpes is okay, but it does lose points for its North Promenade, which will hopefully be sorted out by this grand master plan. If not, maybe we can ask the aliens to sort it out. Number 7, Mansfield. Not just a field full of men. Mansfield is a market town of around 110,000, about 15 miles north of Nottingham. Historically, Mansfield was part of Sherwood Forest of Robin Hood fame, although not much of the forest remains. Mansfield is where the Quaker religion originated in the 17th century. Later, Mansfield became a mining town, with its colliery closing in 1988. I arrived early in the morning, which I like doing because it gives me a chance to see what the place is like and do some filming without people getting in the way, and then I can hang around for a bit and see how busy it gets later on. But given the amount of permanently closed shops, I had a feeling it might not actually get that busy. Mansfield is a market town going back over 700 years, and I wouldn't have thought wooden stalls would be that comfortable to sleep on, but I guess they beat a hard concrete floor. The architecture in town looked pretty nice for the most part, with the yellow sandstone gleaming in the sun. The railway viaduct looked pretty good too, although the area around it was pretty run down. A Reddit post I saw while I was researching Mansfield said that Mansfield is what London would have looked like if everyone left their lights on during the Blitz. Now, I think that's pretty harsh, but there's definitely no denying these buildings could do with some TLC. Mansfield Brewery has been closed down since 2002. Double Olympic gold medalist Rebecca Adlington is from Mansfield, hence there are 2 swimming pools in the town. Speaking of the town, let's head back there now through this grimy underpass. The time was now past 9 AM on a weekday, but you wouldn't have thought it. It was just as dead as it had been at 7 o'clock when I arrived. In fact, it was even more quiet because at 7 o'clock there had been a drunk or drugged woman screaming at someone around the marketplace area. Mansfield does have a small cultural area with the Palace Theatre next door to the Mansfield Museum. And sadly, in the vicinity, yet more closed down stores. Not many shops are left in the Handley Arcade, but the few that do remain seem quite nice. Finally, a bit more life in the town. Maybe they'd come out for some dirty Dicky Dirts. Apparently it was a discounted clothes store or something back in the day. Closed down now, of course. This poor fella's only charging £9 a haircut and he still gets his window smashed in. And this place only charges £5.25. No wonder he's got the shutters down. Having said that, judging by those prices, these shutters have probably been down since 2006. Mansfield Town Centre is having a tough old time, as is the dated Four Seasons shopping centre. This sign says, a place to be proud of. Quite frankly, this sign looks ridiculous when you turn around and take a look around you. I'm afraid with scenes like this, Mansfield is not a town to be proud of. Now you can't blame the normal folk of the town for preferring to shop in the retail park. This retail park here is next to Mansfield Town FC, who play at Field Mill, or for sponsorship reasons now called the One Call Stadium. The team plays in League One, the third tier of English football. Let's move on then, and we don't have to go too far for our next stop. And here we are in 1941. What's going on here? This is place number 6. This is Ilkeston. This is a town where the main industries, coal, iron and textiles, have all been taken away, and the town attempts to move into the 21st century. Well, unless you're that guy with the old car and the air raid siren, then perhaps not. Hogarth's pub is on Coronation Street. Incidentally, William Roach, the actor who plays Ken Barlow in the soap, is from Ilkeston. This pub is opposite the closed down Beacon Ritz Cinema and Bingo Hall. Opened in 1938, so 6 years younger than Ken Barlow, and it was closed in 2018. Nowadays, it's apparently haunted. There's a new cinema, the Real Cinema, spelled R-E-E-L, with good prices, and you're not allowed to do any silly TikTok dances. The main square, the marketplace, contained a war memorial, small church, several boozers, and about a dozen pissheads. For a town of over 40,000 souls, there really wasn't much to do, apart from let buses get in your way while you're vlogging. There's a park and a swimming pool, and the residential areas seemed okay. But the town centre has seen better days. I looked on Google for the attractions in Ilkeston though, and it really did actually come up trumps. This attraction, known as the NatWest Hole, had tremendous reviews. One reviewer called Strawberry states, "Wonderful tourist destination, perfect for scampering through if you have small stature. I found out about this hole at a biscuit dunking competition and was tremendously excited to see it in person." Jim says, "I was able to put a leg through. Comparable to Four Corners in 4 states in the States." TripAdvisor actually had to suspend reviews on the hole back in 2020. I kid you not. I just had to get a selfie with the NatWest Hole. The #1 tourist attraction in Ilkeston, if not Derbyshire, heck, the whole of Britain. The whole of Britain. See what I did there? After this, I was absolutely buzzing. I kind of walked around in a daze. It was like seeing the Colosseum perched on top of the pyramids of Giza with Machu Picchu and Mount Everest in the background. For 50 years, Ilkeston didn't have a railway station until one was opened in 2017. It's on its 3rd football team after the previous 2 got wound up. It's a town that's had a hard time of it and not had much luck come its way. It's only 7 miles to central Nottingham, so I imagine any young person with any ambition is going to move to Nottingham. The few folk that I spoke to in town seemed friendly, so I wish them well for their uncertain future. Number 5 is Gainsborough, one of those places with the tourist information board that only someone with a sense of humour could have posted. Gainsborough was once the capital of Britain in 1013 when King Canute and his dad briefly captured the town. Nowadays, Gainsborough is a town of around 21,000 with large pockets of deprivation, roughly equidistant from Lincoln and Scunthorpe. A BBC article from April 2025 quotes a local. "There's been all sorts on this street. There's been machetes, shots through windows, there's been crack deals and cannabis farms. The street he's talking about is the High Street." In November 2024, police seized 80 kilos of cocaine on an industrial estate in Gainsborough. In fairness, the council are trying to do something. They've secured funding to tart up the town centre a bit. It's going to look like this someday. Oh dear, the AI graphics have had a shocker here. How did that get through quality control? And certain areas have been revamped, or they're in the process of revamping at the moment. I sincerely hope more people are about in the town centre then. Marshall's Yard here is a great little shopping area, to be fair. I have to hand it to Gainsborough. This is pretty nice and it's also very central. Across the road, however, and these boarded up houses are quite possibly former drug dens. Police have closed at least 10 of these houses in the last 18 months. This was next to the old Nick Theatre. Maybe they should have called it the Old Bill Theatre, then maybe they wouldn't have opened a drug den opposite. Like I said, Gainsborough has a population of 21,000. It feels like there are too many houses for the population, which is completely at odds with other British towns that are suffering a housing crisis. And this probably explains why the average price of a terraced property in Gainsborough goes for just £107,000. The Old Hall is a medieval manor house over 500 years old, and it's probably the highlight of the town. I then visited the river where this lady was eyeballing me, and like other inland ports such as Wisbech and Boston, the river was a muddy brown colour and a dumping ground for bikes and trolleys. The buildings on the riverside were an eclectic mixture of knackered and new. I then went for a walk around the back streets to see if I could see a drug deal taking place or the feds kicking someone's door in, but apart from some bad parking and fly tipping, it seemed pretty tranquilo. This chippy has the most explicit instructions. I like to think that people still get it wrong, and the people at work there get more and more frustrated every time, and then probably spit on your chips. Right, what we've got here: Euro shop, vape shop, boarded up shop, nail bar, the word Hollywood, train shop. Train shop? Are you lost? Anyway, convenience store, barbers, beauty store, and a man that's way too old to be riding that bike on a pavement, jewellers, another vape shop, USA chicken, yeehaw, a pet shop, a grow shop, weed growing paraphernalia, and that's it. Man, all I needed was a bookies and I would have completed my bingo card. Damn it. Whoa, wait a second. Hung Wang. Well, I'm sure you're proud of yourself, mate, but we don't really need to know such personal, intimate details about the size of your appendage. The Three Cheers pub. Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip. It's been closed down. We continue our walk then. This is Trinity Street, by the way, and still no bookies. Absolute shocker, to be honest. So there you have it. That's Gainsborough. Apparently 100 million quid investment is coming its way, and well, it can't come quickly enough, to be honest. It needs something done pronto. Polite notice. Can we ask that you do not use this doorway as a public toilet? This area is now covered by CCTV. Thank you. Wow. Number 4, Wellingborough. You know you're getting off to a good start when the local church requests you don't piss up its door. So a medieval market town of around 57,000, not far from Corby in Northamptonshire. This town has a higher than average crime rate for the area, leading people to remove some of the letters from the town's name to make it spell well rough. I was in Wellingborough on a dull Saturday morning, and the overcast skies seem to reflect the people's mood. There's a small, and I mean very small, market in the town, and really not much else. Wellingborough is symptomatic of high street problems up and down the country. Attempts at installing some civic pride here have been graffitied over. Although this one street was quite nice, I must admit. This one street alone, unfortunately. Club Palm Beach was like some kind of sick joke placed on a brown building next to a brown shopping centre, and look at the way this knobhead's parked. And yes, even though they're a knobhead, I've still blurred their number plate because nobody likes the grass. Now, Wellingborough isn't all bad. It does have some pubs that look alright and a couple of parks around the town. But the town centre just feels so mediocre and boring, and most of it was developed in the 1970s when Londoners made the trip roughly 60 miles north. Not much has been done with it since. It's just very boring. I tried reading up about Wellingborough whilst researching it and became so bored, almost slipped into a coma. And the worst thing is, there's not even any other town to visit nearby that's pleasant to go to. Northampton, Corby, Bedford, Peterborough, an inland sea of mediocrity, and Wellingborough was the epicentre. There wasn't anything especially bad about the town. Perhaps I'd become jaded by all the crap town centres I'd visited by this point, and the moody weather wasn't helping either. I have read that there are some nice villages in the area, and so I can't blame the people that live in those villages for not coming into town. I went to the castle just outside of town, which isn't actually a castle, it's a theatre called the Castle Theatre. If you ask me, it doesn't look much like a castle nor a theatre. And the Wellingborough Museum is next door, housed in the former Victorian swimming baths alongside the River Nene. Wellingborough does have one train station, with trains to St Pancras taking just under an hour. So we head back to the town then, and we're welcome to the shopping centre with a load of pigeon crap, cigarette butts and a can of Nelson Mandela. Wellingborough is a bit of an energy vampire. Any good spirits, positivity or joy you might have been feeling that day will be sucked right out of you, and then someone will probably piss on you for good measure. Number 3, Grimsby. Now, Grimsby gets a lot of negative press. Well, judging by these things, it doesn't seem justified. This is People's Park, south of the town centre. It was a beautiful summer's day, maybe around 26 degrees, balmy by Grimsby standards, but enough faffing about in a park. Let's go and see if this town centre is as bad as they say it is. Well, the alleyways around the train station didn't look too great. Unsurprisingly though, the Wetherspoons opposite was buzzing on this sunny Friday afternoon. Which is more than could be said for the shops. The Grimsby Minster though coming up is pretty impressive. Grimsby really is more what? More shuttered down shops? I could show you plenty more of these shut down shops, but I think you get the idea by now. So, Freshly Placed Shopping Centre does seem alright actually. It's pretty busy and the shops are mostly open. And Grimsby does also have some unique attractions like the Fishing Heritage Centre. Grimsby is famous of course for its docks located on the southern mouth of the River Humber as it flows into the North Sea. Grimsby was once home to the largest fishing fleet in the world during the mid-20th century. Due to the European Union's common fisheries policies and the loss of the cod wars to Iceland, fishing has been on the decline since. Grimsby is still the largest fish market in Britain. Ironically though, most of this comes in on boat from Iceland. It's even more ironic when you see the name of this store. Grimsby town centre is flanked by West Marsh and East Marsh. Apparently both are deprived and dangerous, so we'll check them both out, and we'll check out West Marsh first. A couple of years ago, police had to taser a man, drunk out of his mind, who was brandishing an axe and just smashed up a car here in West Marsh. It certainly seemed like a poor place. Their usual fly tipping and graffiti, but there's very few people about despite the good weather. Back to the town centre then, and it's definitely a bit shabby. I was considering saying that this puts the grim into Grimsby, but we're better than that on this channel. That's just too easy. That's like an open goal. That's like saying this puts the into Scunthorpe, and we're not going to say that either because we're definitely better than that. Grimsby Till I Die is part of the post here, which is unfortunate because in Grimsby the life expectancy in parts of the town is reportedly 12 years below the national average. One of those areas is East Marsh, where we're walking to now. Now in East Marsh, more than half of the adults receive benefits and more than half again live in social housing. If you wanted to buy, however, house prices have an average cost of around £83,000. In articles online, locals say that residents have hearts of gold and everyone looks out for each other. To me, it looked like a very poor area, covered with childish graffiti and some disgusting rubbish dumping. Rutland Street was East Marsh's and, well, probably Grimsby's most notorious street, once dubbed Murder Mile. Indeed, in 2021, a man was killed here by two other men in broad daylight. These streets used to house the dock workers of Grimsby. Since industry is down, maintenance of the houses has proved difficult and unaffordable, but a community group has recently been working to retrofit the houses, improving the living conditions for the residents and increasing the value of the homes. I was quite surprised to see a police station at the end of Rutland Street. Maybe someone in the comments can let me know when that was built. I think it's fair to say that 90-odd thousand folk of Grimsby face some challenges and an uncertain future. There's tons of derelict buildings, but this one was the largest. Maybe, again, someone can comment and let me know what it once was. Apparently there's a scheme to revive the High Street, but that's kind of hard to believe when you look around that sign. I've sped this video up 3 times, by the way, so hopefully you don't get too bored. This used to be offices, a bar, gym, shops, I'm not sure what else, all right in the middle of town next to the bus station and the River Freshney. So yeah, that's Grimsby. Many town centres in Britain are dying, but Grimsby is deader than most. How do you revive a town that's miles from anywhere, industry is down, and so many of the people are too sick to work? I don't have the answers. Hopefully somebody has. Let me know in the comments. Number 2, and not very far away from Grimsby, it's Scunthorpe. Now, we just talked about not using the cheap line about Grim being Grimsby. We're also not going to use the word that is in Scunthorpe. You know, that word, the naughtiest word in the English language. The one that rhymes with James Blunt. Only nobody sung you're beautiful about Scunthorpe because it isn't true. Anyway, welcome to Scunthorpe, also known as Scunny or Scumthorpe with an M, a post-industrial town of about 82,000. This is the notorious Frodingham Road. I think that's how you say it, Frodingham Road. Described by Grimsby Live as a ghetto street which causes misery to people who live there due to antisocial behaviour, crime and drug taking. I actually watched a YouTube video recently where there were rats running about in the garbage. So, as you can imagine, I was very excited to visit. It pretty much lived up to the hype. Broken bottles, pathetic graffiti, fast food outlets and convenience stores, interspersed with the odd hint of there having been some form of decent community at some point in the past. Speaking of history, well, Scunthorpe doesn't have that much history. It was built up around the steelworks, and there was only about 1,000 people before 1850. And since the steelworks started to decline, the town has declined as well. The back streets around Frodingham Road are quite frankly filthy. Other areas, just a wasteland. Remember that song by Tiny Temper where he says he's been to Southampton but he's never been to Scunthorpe? This is why. Alright, so you get the idea. That area is just dirty, but it's not all bad. I mean, this area, Baths Hall, this looked like a nice events venue, and out of town there's some reasonably nice residential areas. The North Lincolnshire Museum is the one museum in town. Central Park, which despite not being very central, is probably the best part of Scunny, with this retro swimming pool called The Pods and a 1970s looking college. We make our way back towards town then, past the railway station. One of the first things you'll notice when you leave the station is this lovely block of flats. A boarded up house. It's good to see that North Lincolnshire Council are dealing with the real issues, however. This park is covered in mess and filth, so they've decided to outlaw playing golf. The town centre is pretty dated. This is the 60s style shopping centre called The Foundry. Inside the centre, this cafe had perhaps the most northern specials board I've ever seen. Mince and Yorkshire pud, corned beef hash, yum, liver, bacons and onions. No liver for me, Sarah, that's awful. I'm not quite sure what these squiggly lines are all about. They look like the line I walk in when a police officer asks me to walk in a straight line to prove that I haven't been drinking. It's all very retro indeed. We've got this steelwork sculptures here, like we had in Corby, and some more psychedelic patterns on the pavement, perhaps to distract you from the boarded up shops. David Jason, the actor who played Del Boy in Only Fools and Horses, opened up a store here selling Scunthorpe spring water. Unfortunately, it was found to be tap water, and the business was liquidated by the authorities. Might have just made that up. When it's liver and bacon day at Sarah's Cafe, I could come here instead for some chips, peas and gravy for only £4.20. And to save money I could sleep in a tent in a park. Check this out, beer, food, party. Lagos in Scunny. To be honest, I think Lagos is probably cleaner than Scunny. The charity shops are closing, but you can still get some plastic flowers from the chicken shop for £1. I went for a walk just north of the town. It was a nice day to be walking in the shadow of tower blocks. Now this part of town was nowhere near as dirty as Frodingham Road, but the potholes were ridiculous. Back in the town shopping precinct, and it was like a ghost town. Everything seems to be on the decline in Scunny. Even the local football team, Scunthorpe United, who, after many years as a league team, dropped into non-league in 2022, then dropped into the 6th tier before almost being wound up completely, and eventually they got saved by the chairman of Ilkeston Town. They've just been promoted back to the 5th tier in 2025, so hopefully they'll continue their upward trajectory. Church Square is the modern part of Scunthorpe town centre. It's still a bit of a ghost town as well, but it looks like it has potential. A big open space with various facilities and a visual arts centre inside the church. Hopefully this new modern area can give Scunthorpe a bit of a boost because they need something. Number 1, Sutton in Ashfield. We'll start with the good. That big hospital there, King's Mill, and that's handy if you get stabbed. And the reservoir, also called King's Mill, is handy for hiding dead bodies. There's an uplifting message in the park. You're not how much you have in the bank. Now, being a struggling YouTuber, it's nice to know that I'm not 50p. We head further down the green here and our Great Depression is our lives. Great. I'm depressed and I haven't even got into the town yet. So Sutton in Ashfield is an old mining town, 4 miles west of Mansfield, and the colliery closed in 1989. Sounds familiar? The town's population is around 37,000 and the MP for Ashfield is Lee Anderson of Reform, dubbed 30p Lee after his remarks as part of the Conservative Party that meals could be cooked for 30p a day. Which, if you ask me, makes him an odd fit for a town with large pockets of deprivation like Sutton. But hey, what do I know? I found myself walking through town having a miserable time when, somewhat poetically, I almost stood on this dog turd across from the pets at home. A lot of the pubs seem to be closed down apart from the Wetherspoons, which we'll talk about in a little while. And the Devonshire Arms here, that's inviting down Paddy McGuinness to host a pub quiz. No like it, no latte. Well, they've got more lights on than a bloody Christmas tree outside their pub. That and the Regency Ballroom were about as good as it got really in Sutton. Neglect and decay. A small and depressing outdoor market. Shutters down on some of these shops, and the shops that weren't shuttered down weren't worth shopping in. A similar story in the shopping centre. Although at least in the shopping centre they did have quite a nice little indoor market. The railway station is miles out of the town, so people are reliant on the buses. Sutton Smile Centre, that's a tad optimistic. The town was in the news recently after protests took place due to claims from Lee Anderson that a local man who committed rape was an asylum seeker. During the protest, a 54-year-old lady was refused entrance to the local Wetherspoons while wearing a Union flag. The Wetherspoons manager had installed a policy of no flags and no placards to try and keep problems to a minimum. Also in the same pub a few months prior to this, Lee Anderson and pub staff were abused by 2 men who admitted a charge of using abusive and threatening words and behaviour and received community service orders. This must be the most eventful Wetherspoons in the country. I go in Spoons all the time and the most exciting thing that happens when I'm in there is someone making a mild complaint if the baked beans haven't been microwaved long enough. Anyway, Sutton in Ashfield, compared to other parts of the country, it's not like really bad, it's just a crap town. There's nothing redeeming about it whatsoever. And so that concludes this video. Let me know your thoughts and whether you agree with my choices. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you on the next one.